There is hidden within all of you a potential before which I can only bow down in affection as well as respect. And I look forward to the blossoming of these potentials over time, which is what this college is about. So do volunteer, and all of you are doing so, and I'm greatly appreciative of it. We don't have to begin as geniuses, but make a beginning. And you will certainly take many strides forward. So thank you very much. I'll just say one thing more about the farmer's boots and then go on to today's reflection, which was yesterday's reflection. When yesterday's reflection becomes today's reflection, what happens to today's reflection, which was yesterday's reflection? We do not know. So that's okay. Why is it that the farmer's boots are slaked with mud? The farmer is not there. Only a pair of boots slaked with mud. Now, I've thought about this. I do not know if what I'm going to say is correct, if philosophers would accept it or ridicule me. Sometimes it is very good to be ridiculed. But even when you are ridiculed, you must walk forward. All right? So I'm going to say this to you. The farmer's boots, whether or not the farmer is portrayed in person, is in some sense the farmer. So we say, well, can you step into my shoes? Or in this case, can you step into my boots? Now, therefore, through the boots, the farmer and the mud become one. And it shows the kind of intimacy between the farmer and the earth. The farmer and the earth become one. That is when a harvest is created. An analog will be William Butler Yeats's question, how can we separate the dancer from the dance? Now, this is the state of bliss when you become one. What otherwise would be perceived as two or different or at a distance from each other, becoming one. And this is also how relationships are seen in spiritual terms. There is a verse in the Bible where it says, therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. It's all the same. It is the sense of intimate oneness that we have squandered in the modern age, which has embraced distance and dispersion as the principle of freedom. And therefore, society has been reduced to an aggregation of isolated individuals, a state that is described as anomie. And therefore, society becomes a disorganized dust of isolated individuals. So this is actually our predicament, and it is from this predicament that we need deliverance. All right? And education must play a role in this. That is why we are discussing it in the assembly. If education bypasses these things, very fundamental existential questions, then we may have acquired some knowledge without getting educated. Okay, today, now let me take you to what I really wanted to say today, which was also yesterday, right? I began to introduce the idea that in order to ask in a healthy manner, we must be open to the other. You remember that? All right? Or let me ask you this question. What is the difference between throwing a stone at somebody and asking a question to the same person? Is there any difference? Huh? What is the difference between your words and your stones? Is there any difference? Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes words are pelted, thrown like stones, and we say we're asking questions. These distinctions are being lost. And one of the things we have to guard ourselves against is a deliberate rejection of distinctions in the interest of creating an arbitrary intellectual world in which the unbridled will of the individual reigns supreme. The consequence being that it disrupts and in fact erases the scope for any conversation or dialogue. I'm sorry I used a long sentence, but you can understand what I have tried to say. Sometimes sentences begin to assume a life of their own. I can't help it, right? So now, what does it mean to be open to the other when you ask questions? So obviously, asking is not like a duel. It's not like a fight. You know, you give one punch, and the other person returns the compliment, which you may duck. And the other person issues a left uppercut, which you may not duck, and therefore you look slightly more colorful and handsome. That's not what conversation is. That's not what asking is.